December 17, 1903, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, wind howling across sand dunes. The air was freezing, 27 miles per hour gusts tore across the desolate beach. Most men would have stayed inside, but two brothers from Ohio, bicycle mechanics with no formal education, stood beside a fragile framework of spruce wood and cotton fabric, preparing to attempt the impossible. They had no funding, no government backing, no engineers. Just a dream that had consumed them for 4 years. What drives two men to risk everything, their savings, their reputation, their lives, for 12 seconds in the air? Engine sputters to life. It all began with a question that wouldn't let them sleep. If birds can fly, why can't we? Wilbur and Orville Wright were not the obvious candidates to change human history. Born in the heart of America, they ran a small bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio. They were quiet men, methodical, obsessed with detail. While other inventors chased fame and fortune with massive flying machines, the Wrights studied birds. They watched how hawks banked and turned, how sparrows adjusted their wings in the wind. Pages turning, pencil scratching. In 1899, Wilbur wrote a letter to the Smithsonian Institution requesting every document they had on flight. He was 32 years old. His brother Orville was 28. Neither had finished high school, but both possessed something more valuable than degrees: an unshakable belief that the problem of flight could be solved through observation, experimentation, and persistence. The world was watching someone else. Samuel Langley, secretary of the Smithsonian, had $50,000 in government funding. His aerodrome was a magnificent machine, complex, expensive, backed by the scientific establishment. In October 1903, just weeks before the Wrights' attempt, Langley's aircraft plunged into the Potomac River twice. Newspapers declared powered flight impossible. A fool's errand. But in a wooden shed on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, two brothers were tightening bolts on a machine that weighed 600 pounds and cost less than $1,000 to build. They called it the Wright Flyer. Wind-rattling wood. The challenge wasn't just building an engine light enough and powerful enough to lift a man. The real problem, the one that had killed Otto Lilienthal and dozens of others, was control. How do you steer a machine moving through 3 dimensions of invisible air? The Wrights had an answer, but would it work? For 3 years, the brothers had tested gliders at Kitty Hawk. They chose the location for its steady winds and soft sand, a natural cushion for the crashes they knew would come. And crashes did come. Sound of wood splintering. In 1901, their third glider performed so poorly that Wilbur told Orville, "Man will not fly for 50 years. They packed up and went home to Dayton, defeated. But defeat wasn't the end, it was data. Back in their bicycle shop, the Wrights built something revolutionary, a wind tunnel, 6 feet long, made from a wooden box and a fan. Inside, they tested over 200 wing shapes, carefully recording lift and drag measurements for each one. Mechanical clicking, air rushing. What they discovered changed everything. The mathematical tables used by every aeronautical engineer in the world, published by the great Otto Lilienthal himself, were wrong. The brothers rebuilt their glider using their own calculations. In 1902, they returned to Kitty Hawk. This time they made over 1,000 flights. They learned to control roll, pitch, and yaw. They could turn, they could climb, they could descend smoothly. They could fly, but only as gliders. Now came the final challenge: power. No automobile engine was light enough, so the Wrights designed their own. Their mechanic, Charlie Taylor, built it from scratch in just 6 weeks, a 12-horsepower, 4-cylinder engine made of aluminum and cast iron. It weighed 180 pounds. The brothers also had to invent their own propellers. They realized something no one else had. A propeller isn't a paddle. It's a rotating wing moving through air. Using this insight, they designed twin propellers that were 85% efficient, better than most modern designs. Metal on metal engine testing. By December 1903, everything was ready. The machine, the engine, the propellers. The weather, however, was not cooperating. For days they waited. Temperatures dropped below freezing. Winds howled. The brothers played cards, repaired minor damage, and checked every bolt and wire connection repeatedly. On December 14th, they were ready. Wilbur won a coin toss for the first attempt. He climbed aboard, settled onto the hip cradle that controlled the wing-warping mechanism, and opened the throttle. Engine roaring. The flyer lurched down the launch rail, lifted, climbed too steeply, stalled, and crashed into the sand after just 3.5 seconds. Wilbur wasn't hurt, but the machine needed repairs. 3 days of work, 3 days of cold, 3 days of wondering, would this be the flight that changed everything or ended it all? December 17th, 1903, 10:35 a.m. 5 local witnesses had walked from the nearby life-saving station to watch. The wind was bitter, 27 miles per hour, stronger than ideal, but the brothers had been away from home too long. It was now or never. This time it was Orville's turn. He positioned the camera, yes, they thought, to document this moment, and instructed John Daniels, one of the witnesses, to squeeze the shutter bulb the instant the machine left the ground. Footsteps on sand. Orville lay prone on the lower wing, gripping the controls. Wilbur stood at the right wingtip to steady the machine as it rolled down the 60-foot launch rail. The engine was running, chain drives connected to the twin propellers. Everything shook with mechanical violence. Orville released the restraining wire. Engine at full throttle. The flyer began to move, slowly at first, then faster. Wilbur ran alongside, steadying the wing. At the end of the rail, the machine lifted. 4 feet off the ground. Sudden silence, just wind. For a moment, Orville fought the controls. The machine pitched up, then down. He was flying, but barely. The flyer wasn't gliding through calm air. It was fighting its way forward against a 27-mile-per-hour headwind. 12 seconds. 120 feet. Then the skids touched sand. The engine was still running, the propellers still spinning. Orville shut off the power and climbed out. Cheering in the distance. John Daniels had captured the moment. The photograph, grainy, slightly blurred, shows the exact instant humanity left the ground under its own power. Wilbur is visible at the right, having just let go of the wing. The flyer is airborne, nose slightly up, Orville lying flat in the center. It doesn't look like much, a wooden frame, fabric wings, a man lying on his stomach. But in that image is proof mankind had flown. They made 3 more flights that day. The last one, Wilbur at the controls, lasted 59 seconds and covered 852 feet. Then a gust of wind flipped the flyer and damaged it beyond immediate repair. It would never fly again. But it had done enough. The Wrights sent a telegram to their father. Success 4 flights Thursday morning, all against 21-mile wind, started from level with engine power alone, average speed, through air 31 miles, longest 57 seconds, inform press, home Christmas. The press barely noticed. One newspaper in Dayton ran a small article, most ignored it entirely. The Scientific American didn't publish a story for 5 years. Many believed it was a hoax. After all, if the famous Samuel Langley with his government funding couldn't do it, how could 2 bicycle mechanics? But the Wright brothers didn't need validation. They had the data, they had the photographs, and they knew something the world didn't yet understand. They hadn't just flown once by accident. They had solved the problem of controlled flight. Over the next 2 years, working in a cow pasture outside Dayton, they refined their design. By 1905, the Wright Flyer III could stay airborne for 39 minutes and fly in circles, complete control. Birds calling. In 1908, Wilbur traveled to France to demonstrate the machine publicly. European aviators had been claiming their own achievements, but when Wilbur took to the air, banking smoothly, executing figure eights, climbing and descending at will, the crowd fell silent. Then they erupted. One French pilot watching from the ground said simply, "We are beaten, we just don't exist." The secret wasn't the engine, it wasn't the wing shape, it was control. The Wrights understood that an airplane is inherently unstable, and that's okay, as long as the pilot can make continuous adjustments. They invented the 3-axis control system still used in every aircraft today. Wilbur died of typhoid fever in 1912 at age 45. Orville lived until 1948, long enough to see jets break the sound barrier, long enough to see the world they had unlocked become something they could barely recognize. The original Wright Flyer, the one that flew for 12 seconds on December 17, 1903, hangs today in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. Millions pass beneath it every year. Most pause, some cry. Because that fragile framework of wood and fabric represents something profound, the moment human beings stopped dreaming about the sky and started living in it. This is Time to Fly Stories, where every plane tells a legend. Think about what it took: no computers, no engineers, no safety net, just 2 brothers with notebooks, a wind tunnel made from a wooden box, and an unshakable belief that the impossible was simply a problem waiting for the right solution. 12 seconds changed everything. Every flight you've ever taken, every vacation, every reunion, every chance to see the world from 35,000 feet began on a cold beach in North Carolina with two men who refused to accept that the sky belonged only to birds. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real stories from the sky. Hit that notification bell and join us as we explore the legends, the heroes, and the machines that taught humanity to fly. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Engine fading into silence.